So, what if you could download 50 years of life lessons from one of the greatest innovators of our time in just a few minutes? Well, today, we're diving into Steve Jobs' legendary Stanford commencement speech. It's a talk so powerful, it has literally changed lives all over the world. And you know what? He built the whole thing around just 3 simple stories. Let's start with how he opened.
That's it. That's how he began. No big, fancy introduction, no complicated agenda, just a simple, direct promise. I'm going to tell you 3 stories. It's that raw simplicity that just pulls you in, right? It makes you want to lean in and really listen.
So, why do we still talk about this speech? What makes it so legendary? Well, its message is completely universal. It's like a masterclass in life, career, and loss, and it's delivered with just incredible honesty. At its heart, it's really about how to find meaning in the beautiful, messy, unpredictable chaos of life.
And that leads us right into his first story. He called it Connecting the Dots. And it's this powerful lesson about trusting that all the random seeming events in your life, well, they actually have a purpose. A purpose you probably won't see until you look back.
His life kicked off with a major plot twist. His biological mother, a young grad student, had one non-negotiable condition. His adoptive parents had to be college graduates. A lawyer and his wife were all lined up, but at the very last second, they changed their minds, decided they wanted a girl. So a late-night call goes out to the next couple on the list, his future parents. But here's the catch. Neither of them had graduated from college. His birth mother only agreed after they made one solemn promise. They would send him to college no matter what. And that one promise, it would end up shaping everything.
And they totally kept that promise. He enrolled in a really expensive college, but just 6 months in, he had a realization. He was completely lost. He had no clue what he wanted to do with his life, and he just couldn't see the value in what he was learning. All he saw was his working-class parents' entire life savings just disappearing on his tuition. So he made an absolutely terrifying choice. He dropped out.
And this slide kind of shows the crazy path he took next. Since he didn't have to take required classes anymore, he just started dropping in on whatever seemed interesting. One of those classes was calligraphy. Now that sounds totally random and useless, right? But then 10 years later, while he was designing the very first Macintosh computer, it all came rushing back. That useless knowledge about fonts and typefaces became the secret sauce that made the Mac so revolutionary and beautiful.
And this is the whole point of the story. You just can't connect the dots looking forward. It's impossible. You have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, karma, whatever you want to call it. You have to believe that the dots will connect down the road. It's having that faith that gives you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you way off the well-worn path.
Okay, so his second story builds on this whole idea of trust, but it's about love and loss. And honestly, it's even more dramatic. It's all about building something you love from scratch, losing it all in a spectacular fashion, and then somehow finding the strength to start all over again.
I mean, just look at this trajectory. It's insane. He and Woz start Apple in a garage. 10 years later, it's a $2 billion company. He's at the top of his game. And then, at just 30 years old, the unthinkable happens. After a huge fight with the board, he got fired. Fired from the very company that he built.
Can you even imagine that? The single focus of his entire adult life was just gone. Poof. He later said he felt like a total, very public failure and even thought about just running away from Silicon Valley. He was absolutely crushed.
But then, slowly something inside him started to shift. He realized that the heavy burden of being successful was suddenly gone. And in its place was this amazing lightness of being a beginner again. He saw it wasn't an end, it was a liberation. It gave him the freedom to be unsure, to try new things, and to start what he called one of the most creative periods of his entire life.
And wow, what a creative period it was. He started Next, a company whose technology is still at the core of Apple products today. He also bought a tiny little graphics company that would become Pixar, the studio that made Toy Story and changed animation forever. Then, in this unbelievable twist of fate, Apple bought Next. And just like that, Steve Jobs was back at the company he founded. The crazy thing? None of it would have happened if he hadn't been fired.
And this all leads to his main point here. He said, sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. He was totally convinced that the only thing that kept him going was that he loved what he did. So his message was simple. You have got to find what you love. And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Whatever you do, don't settle.
Now, his third and final story is the most profound of all. It's about death. And it's here that he shares what he called the most powerful tool he ever found for making the really big choices in life.
For 33 years, he said, he looked in the mirror every single morning and asked himself this one question. And whenever the answer was no for too many days in a row, he knew he had to change something. Remembering that he was going to die soon was, in his own words, the most important tool he had. It just makes all the external expectations, all the pride, all the fear of failure, it all just falls away, leaving only what is truly important.
And look, this wasn't just some philosophical thought experiment for him. About a year before he gave this speech, the idea of death became terrifyingly real. A scan found a tumor on his pancreas. The diagnosis was awful, a type of cancer that was pretty much a death sentence. Doctors told him to expect to live for 3 to 6 more months. He said his doctor literally told him to go home and get his affairs in order, which is basically doctor speak for prepare to die. He spent that entire day with that devastating news. But later that evening, a biopsy revealed something absolutely incredible. It turned out to be a very, very rare form of pancreatic cancer that was actually curable with surgery. He had the surgery, and he was okay. Being that close to death gave him this completely new perspective. He said, no one wants to die, but death is the one destination we all share. Then he started to see it not as something to be scared of, but as, get this, life's single best invention. He called it life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new.
And that realization leads to this fundamental truth. Your time is limited. It really is. So don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't get trapped by dogma, which is really just living with the results of what other people think. And most importantly, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. He believed that somehow they already know what you truly want to become.
And that brings us to his famous conclusion. A simple little phrase he borrowed from the final issue of a counterculture magazine he loved called the Whole Earth Catalog.
On the back cover of their very last issue, there was a picture of an early morning country road, and underneath it were these 4 words: stay hungry, stay foolish. It was their final goodbye, and it became the wish that he had for himself and for all of the graduating students that day. So what does that actually mean? Well, stay hungry is about never being satisfied, right? Always pushing for what's next, always wanting to learn and create more. And stay foolish, that's about being willing to try things even if you have no idea what you're doing. It's about being willing to risk looking like a fool, because the moment you think you know it all is the moment you stop learning anything.
And so that really leaves us with a big question to ask ourselves. As you move through your own life, what dots are you collecting right now? What are your calligraphy classes, your unexpected setbacks, your quiet moments of reflection? And will you have the faith to trust that one day, when you look back, it will all make perfect sense?